Welcome to Now for Someone Completely Interesting. I'm your host, Ben Poulin. Now, normally I like to write out these nice intros, but I've got probably one of my oldest best friends joining me on this episode, and he's always been off the cuff, off the seat of his pants. Let's just get into it. Let's just get to it. So I'm very excited, very happy to welcome a guy I don't see nearly often enough, but it's like we've never been apart.
It's true.
Brett Speight, welcome to Now for Someone Completely Interesting.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks for having me. You did ask me to send a story, and very typical me. I was like, yeah. And then we pulled up, and I'm like, oh, right.
But you know what? Since I've known you, you've always been like head first into anything. Don't think about it, just do it. You've always done things very well. So we'll get into that a little bit. But let's start with... let's a little bit of how we know each other. Okay, so we met. It was you had moved to Elk Point in grade 9. Kind of got to know a few people. We weren't friends off the hop, and just didn't follow the same circle. But we found out over a short period of time that we disliked the same person.
I remember actually exactly when we started hanging out, and the dislike of certain things and people at the time, who I'm sure are wonderful people now.
This is why we are no longer naming names of people. That's a whole.
But
other episode.
I remember the one individual throwing a what do they call them? The little pin tomatoes.
Cushions?
Yeah, the little pin cushions
from home ec class.
Yeah, at you in the change room, and thinking, what a, can I swear on your podcast?
Absolutely.
What an asshole. And then when he handed it to me, and being new, I don't think a judgment had been made on me, but handed it to me, and I remember throwing it at him. And after that, we started hanging out. Best decision I ever made to throw a pincushion at somebody.
Absolutely. Now, let's talk a little bit about before we met. You growing up now, single mom raising 2 boys.
Yeah.
Your dad passed away when you were very young, and your brother was an infant. And from then on, it was just your mom raised you. Tell me a little bit about how that's I think it's had a very positive effect on your life, despite the tragedy of losing a parent. Do you remember your dad at all before he?
Vaguely. As I get older, I have more and more flashes, not lengthy
Right.
memories. I was 3 at the time. My brother was 18 months. So, I have faint memories. I know. So my grandmother just passed away last month, maybe 2 months ago. I don't know, time flies, but it wasn't that long ago. And as we were looking through some pictures, I found pictures of myself from that time. And I actually don't remember, but we were, I remember my mom telling me some stories as we were looking through the pictures of how that impacted me. I think, the joke was always, I was, 12 going on 40.
That makes sense.
Yeah. I grew up a bit. Having a single mom, I always had to look out for the younger brother. And I think that, impacted me. I remember our you might not remember my grad party at my house, but
there's flags.
There was a whole group of us out there, and I think the only sober people were me and my girlfriend at the time, Emily, who's now my wife of 22 years. Wow. We just celebrated 22 years.
Congratulations.
So. Thank you.
And as this is being a pre-recorded show, but the date we're on right now is August 12th, and it's happy birthday again, too.
Yes, thank you. Yes, and now I am actually in my 40s. I mean, I was last year, but I was pretending. I was like, no, I'm still in my late 30s.
41's the new 21, though, believe me.
Right.
Talking a little bit about your mom raising. Let's paint a picture of your mom right now. She's all of 4'11", right? Am I right?
Yeah,
about that?
4'11", 4'12", maybe 5 feet. Let's say 5 feet. Let's be generous.
She's one of the most intimidating people I've ever come across. Now, don't get me wrong. Your mom raised me as much as she raised you for the 2 years you guys lived in Elk Point. Because if I wasn't at my house, we were at your house. But there was no crossing the line. There wasn't even towing the line with her. You just stayed on the fair side of caution. Because what is it like? No, she is a very strong human being as far as character wise and all that sort of. Never tested physically too, because I think she probably could have beat the crap out of us.
Yeah, I never did, and she was never a spanker, to be honest with you. I remember one time when we lived in Lethbridge and she was in university, and we'd always tease her, because I think I was maybe 12. I was monster compared to her, and my brother was 10 and bigger than her, and we'd always tease her like, what are you gonna, she'd get mad and we'd be like, what are you gonna do, little lady? And I remember one time her literally flying through the air like, Mortal Kombat style and drop kicking Blair in the chest.
Jeez. And Blair's your younger brother.
Yes, Blair, my younger brother, in the chest, and him rolling backwards across the bed and falling on the other side of the floor. And I mean, it was all done in jest, and we all got a chuckle out of it. But yeah, she I think the biggest fear is because, she worked so hard for us and was disappointing her. And so she would take a tone and it was like, oh no, I don't want to disappoint mom. And it didn't take much, but yes, for a small woman, she could very, very much command her room.
But I did see one time a fight, a couple of our classmates and not small individuals got into an altercation right in the middle of the hallway, and the big circle of group gathering around, and your mom bulldozing in and breaking that fight up. She was a teacher, by the way. That's what brought to a point. So,
she didn't just wander around the school.
No, she didn't just wander around the yeah, sorry. Although after that, she may have been hired to do just that in some situations. Jeez. Oh, Mrs. Speight, we salute you. So bringing that on, like from when I knew you come into high school and everything like that, you did have like a can-do attitude all the time. I remember we were in grade 10 and one of the junior high sports teams, I can't remember, was it volleyball or basketball? There was nobody to coach these junior high boys. I'll do it.
Yeah.
Was that intimidating? Like these?
It was a bit intimidating because obviously, and it was volleyball, and I remember that, and it was intimidating because the other coaches were all teachers in their 30s, 40s,
like us.
And right, and I was what 15, 16. I wasn't even 16 at the time. I would have been 15 at the time, so it was intimidating. It kind of goes back to that looking after my little brother. He wanted to play volleyball, and they didn't have a coach, and
that's right, he was on the team.
Yeah, okay. You bet. The only reason we were able to make that work was because my mom was a teacher, so she was technically the coach. I was just the one running drills and but teaching
as the adult to sign on the dotted line for
for liability reasons.
Absolutely. But it was like I don't know of another student. And I'm sure there's people out there like that, but in our little community, that was just kind of telling us to where you would go in life. Because then after that, it was, well, you went to, I mean, you did move away after grade 10, but of course we stayed in touch and close contact. You moved to Caroline, Alberta, which is famous for a sports figure. What's his name again?
Kurt Browning.
No. Chris Russell.
Yes, Chris Russell too. Yeah, we're good with ice out that way. Apparently, yeah, good skaters.
Yeah, not bad. Do they still have it? Is it still called the Kurt Browning Arena?
It is still called the Kurt Browning Arena, and the welcome sign says "Welcome to Kurt Browning Country."
Ah, yes. Okay, nothing yet about Chris Russell yet. Eh?
Not yet.
Probably because he's an Oiler, and you guys are more Flames fans down there.
Well, it's kind of divided, right? Like it can get heated. So growing up, my grandmother, diehard Edmonton Eskimos, Oilers, I guess they're the Elks now, but at the time they were the Eskimos, Oilers. My grandfather, Stampeders and Flames. And so, yeah, it could get really heated.
How did that work as a marriage?
You know what? There's some yelling, but they made it through. I mean, they were married when my grandma passed away, 63 years. Wow.
So that's your grandma that passed away. That's on your mom's side.
That's my mom's mom.
Let's talk about then, because that actually might set the tone a little bit of where your mom got some of her. You were living in Caroline. We came down to visit. We were would have been grade 11, just after you moved away.
Yeah, it would have been grade 11.
So I know it was the fall. We came down to visit you. Do you remember what we were doing at the time?
We were driving around. Yeah, what else do you do in a small town?
Yeah, a little Ford Tempo, front wheel drive, but it wasn't just driving around town. That's not why we got in trouble.
No, we. Yeah, well, it was so dry, but it had rained so much a couple of weeks before, and we went down by the Raven River just outside of Caroline, and I was just going to cut through this little side road, but because it was more shaded, it hadn't dried, and we went right up to the door. We were buried deep, and then we this is just when cell phones first became coming out. This is, okay, let's go 1996. It would have been 96, yeah. Yeah, okay. Yeah. And so we got a hold of your grandpa. Yes, yeah. After multiple efforts to try and unbury that thing, you and Justin Dizelle. That's right. Yeah, we couldn't get it. And so we called my grandpa who had a truck, and he came out. And now we would have got away with it except for one thing. Yeah. So can I... Go for it. Because you were behind the wheel, I was in the back seat. So your grandpa backs up, puts a tow strap between his truck and this little Ford Tempo.
I'm sitting in the back seat. I'm looking out the back window. As he's pulling us out, there's water spraying up. There's the exhaust clouding the air. It's at that time of night. It's kind of a fog rolling in. You can't see. All of a sudden, I see 2 brake lights. And you're hammering on this car. And whammo.
Yeah.
We hit the back of your grandpa's truck. We thought, now we're dead.
Well, and of course, I was in panic mode all of a sudden because we hit his truck. And my grandfather is probably the calmest man you'll ever meet. And but when he gets mad, which to be honest, I'm 41, never seen it.
Right.
Never seen the man mad. But the stories that my aunts and uncles and my mom would tell is like when, oh my God, you don't want grandpa to get mad because when he gets mad, watch out. But yeah, so I'm panicked, like, oh my God, I just hit my grandpa's truck and it's, it's my mom's car. And yeah. And so, but I forgot at the time. And it wasn't until a couple days later when my mother was still mad at me and my grandfather was the one who came to my aid to maybe let me out of jail.
Well, we thought we were done for.
Oh,
and
for sure.
I can remember clear. Your grandpa comes out and looks at he looks at his truck. There's not a mark on the truck, but the trunk lid of the car was smashed in, and your grandpa's like, I don't know the effect of it. It'll buff out.
No, I think he said the first thing he said was, I think you hit a tree. And I'm like, no, I'm pretty sure I hit you. He's like, no, you hit a tree. And I'm like, what tree? There's no trees.
He was trying to lead us into it. But I remember hearing after the fact too, your mother, your grandmother, they were going to kill us.
Yes, my mom was so mad. And, but now that I think about it, I remember, and he pointed this out to my mom, and this is what kind of got her to calm down a bit. He told me, hit the gas and don't stop.
Right.
I'm just going to keep going.
Oh, so he took the blame.
Yeah. And then once you're clear, just let off the gas and but that's not what he did. Once we got clear, he slammed on his brakes
but he saved us. We hit 41 because of your grandpa. I'm sure of it.
Yep. Yeah. My mom was going to kill me. She was so mad.
Moving past, then we got through high school. You mentioned the grad party where you're not sure. I do remember bits and pieces of it too.
I remember the funniest thing that sticks out to me is Darren dry heaving off of
our buddy Darren. Yes, another. Yeah, we got to have him on one day too.
Yes, yes, that would be funny right. If you actually get all 3 of us together. That might be. I don't know.
That could be dangerous. Yeah. Yes. That's right. Yeah, the driving off the deck.
Oh my God. And I say, Darren, drink some water, man.
Nothing left in the tank, and he still went.
He did, yeah.
But those, when you're 18, that's what you can get away with. You moving on from, you went down to Calgary. You went to, was it SAIT?
I did a year at SAIT, yeah.
Okay,
so
it was hotel and restaurant management. Okay.
Yeah. I worked so my grandparents owned some hotels and restaurants, so that's where I worked when I was in high school in Carolina. I worked for them, cleaning rooms, working front desk, and thought this would be a cool career. And Emily, who I was dating her, and obviously it worked out. We're still married. She was going to SAIT for library and information management, and so went with her and thought, I'll be a GM at a hotel or something, and then. About a year in, realizing that all the jobs I'd get when I got out were the same jobs I was already doing. And I was, well, that's weird. So I planned to go, I was going to work for a bank for the summer.
Right.
And then go back and get my BCom was the plan.
Okay.
Didn't work out that way.
But you still worked out a great career in banking.
Yeah. So I went to work for a bank and I liked it so much that I was like, well, I'll put off the school, and I'll put off the school a little bit longer and just kept in
all
banking.
The way up to a branch manager. But that was always that go-getter. You were always willing to take on the extra duties, I think, and just get what you needed to get it done. And there was no did you ever really plan any route that you had in your career, because you've had some pretty good jobs?
Yeah, to a degree. I try not to get too stuck to a plan. I when I got into banking, I realized like this is an industry where I can actually grow my career without having to go back and get the education until I hit a certain point.
Right.
What they really want is skill and ability, and there was a lot of smart people around me I could learn from and really get good at it. So that's kind of the path I chose. And then when I kind of hit that peak, and it was like, well, this is as far as I can go without more education. So I decided to take my master's degree. Mm-hmm. But in the interim, one of my bosses from my current employer jumped to a different employer, and I ended up going there, which was fun. But then I missed leadership, and ended up in a different. So while there's a plan, like always to kind of grow and challenge myself, I used to say, and I still say this to this day, I know it's time to move on when my staff doesn't need me anymore. Okay. When I show up and I kick my feet up, I do my coaching sessions with them, but they really, if I got hit by a bus, things wouldn't change. Right. They could just tick right along. And that's how I kind of know, okay, the challenge is over. It's time to go find something more challenging.
Is that a good feeling?
It's a great feeling. That's why I love leadership. Why I've always kind of sought out leadership roles is because the one branch I managed, I remember when I started it was, low employee engagement, and there was the VP at the time saying, like, there's probably 5 people here we're going to have to show the door because they're just not on board. And a lot of those 5, none of those 5 had to be shown the door. And in fact, 4 of them went on to management roles themselves because they really bought in, and we were able to give them the skills and coach them. So it brings up just I've never thought of it that way. And part of it is because in the various jobs I've had over careers, I've had managers that become micromanagers. Sure. And it's almost, and I don't know if you've ever encountered this, but there's that point where when you as under someone's leadership start to grow and start to improve, it's almost like they feel threatened. Yep. And instead of having that attitude that you have, that, well, I can go on to the next challenge, they can take over. Like, what a freeing idea for someone to have as far as growing just personally and then having another fulfilling job or career. Yeah, I'm fortunate I've never worked for anybody that would kind of be threatened by that, but I've seen it in my peers, right? And others where it's like, well, I can't share that knowledge because I'm the manager. I should, and it's like, no, if you share that knowledge, then you're growing people. And I used to joke with my VP that I was the training branch because all my people would get promoted out of, like, constantly. It was a constant, and I wasn't having turnover because they were leaving the company. It was because when there was a gap and somebody needed to be moved up, they already had the skills. They just, let's plug them in. They're great. They're ready to go. Right. So, to me, I find it, could I find a career that would be challenging for 20 years? Probably. But I would never want to just coast. Whatever put you in that mindset to be that kind of a leader where you wanted everybody else to be to the point where they didn't need you? Well, I don't know I've ever talked to someone who had that approach. To be honest, this is blowing my mind. Yeah, to be honest, I learned it. So I went into kind of an assistant manager role as kind of my first leadership role, and I had a really good leader, but not necessarily like a nurturing coaching leader, but kind of I trust you. And I had very little oversight from that leader. But I had almost the opposite approach in that role because I felt I had to control things so that they would work well. Right. And then as I got promoted, I would learn that, I'm really having these, like, where I'm running into struggles with buy-in, or where I'm running into struggles with morale or whatever, is when I'm trying to control. Right. And so I would just kind of search out literature and things and like that, and find out, like, okay, so what is this and I would just tweak and try and tweak. And you might have to develop some sort of a management training program based on that. Well, in my current job, I actually do teach we fund not-for-profits. But okay, let's okay, before we get into it there, okay, where are you working now? So right now I'm the CEO at United Way Central Alberta. So we're a not-for-profit that strengthens other not-for-profits. So we do, anybody who's worked for a major company has probably interacted with a United Way. Right. There's 90 some across the country, each kind of local. So we're based out of Red Deer. Our region is basically just south of Leduc to just north of Calgary, border to border. And what we do is we work with different levels of government to advocate on social issues. But what most people know us for is we raise money and then we grant it to social service agencies. Right. That is what it used to be, just very simple. We've expanded, so we do a lot of advocacy and partnership work and work with the municipalities and things like that. But to just boil it down, we raise funds and then we fund agencies who align with our priorities, which is poverty reduction, mental and physical health, and youth development. So
Okay.
those are
So
kind
now,
of our three
and
focuses.
so now essentially what we're saying is based on that now that your position with the United Ways, you're overseeing the people who are taking care of these avenues within the company. So there's a lot of different facets that you have to.
Yeah, I oversee so I have what I call a community impact side. So that's the team that overlooks our work in community. So our granting, our partnerships in community, things like that. And then I have a team that oversees our fundraising. I have a marketing team that does our marketing, creates our material. And then I have a finance team, obviously, because gotta account for the money.
So, okay. So now let's go back. So you said now, so what you do have now, kind of a management training program.
Yeah, for sure. So one thing we looked at, again, going back to people think we raise funds and we cut checks. That's definitely a part of what we do. But we were looking at how do we, we only have so much money. We only raise so much per year. And with the economy being down, it's been tougher. So how do we add value to our big region, right? Because our region is massive, right? Leduc to Airdrie, basically.
Yeah.
How do we add value to those not-for-profits that we can't afford to fund, that could use some support? And we determined between our staff and our huge pool of volunteers, we have a huge number of people with a lot of experience and skills in very specific areas. Why don't we offer free, like, professional development? We'll drive into your town. You sign up, we'll find a partner there that'll let us use their space, and we'll teach you. So the one that I decided to teach is leadership coaching and performance management. And so that's probably our most popular one. A lot of not-for-profit leaders, this is a bit of a generalization, but in those rural communities, they're a social worker and they start as a program manager, and they stay and they work their way up and they become the leader of the organization, and they all have great hearts and do great work. But if you don't have like management leadership training, all of a sudden you're in this leadership role. It's nice to have somebody who has the experience in that to come in and kind of guide and say, here's some quick wins that you can do, and here's how to approach management and leadership.
Yeah, because it's not just about getting the job done, but it's directing people, I guess, in a sense, because you're going to have people working with you and for you in that manage. And then even though it's not for profit, you're still, when you're dealing with money, you gotta operate a little bit of a business sense so that you're allocating effectively. Yeah,
you always have to look at, right, like with any business or not for profit, it's you have so much revenue. How do you manage your expenses, and how do you do it efficiently? And where the hardest part for smaller not for profits and smaller businesses too is how do we take that overarching strategy, and how do you create realistic, measurable goals for my team, and then how do I draw the two together and coach them to it, right? And that's kind of what this offering that we do does is, here's your strategy, here's how you create goals, and here's how you coach.
So is this something you've developed based on your own experience, or have you been taking some courses or seeking out like certifications of any kind to... I don't know how this works.
So this is something I created based on my own experience.
Okay.
So obviously, my background in banking, I did a lot, like my claim to fame, I had a lot of success in my branch manager roles was I just coached my people.
Right.
I created a coaching program, performance management. There was accountability, but not the I'm going to smack you, more like, hey, we need the team to win type of accountability, and you've made a commitment to me to do this.
And just think, that all started because your little brother wanted to play volleyball.
Right? Isn't that the truth?
That's all I got about it. What are we doing today that's going to lead us to success tomorrow?
Yeah, it's funny, right? And it's interesting how the different just the little things that you interact with can have huge repercussions,
right.
In your personal and professional life.
Yeah. But you've always had this knack for, like, just I've always felt like you said, like, it wasn't just you had a good job in banking.
Yep.
You started out as a teller. You went up into, I think, loans. I got a mortgage through you, and you kept moving up the line, and then it was from banking you went to, was it TELUS you went and worked?
I did a little stint in telecom. It wasn't for me, so
okay.
I didn't stick around very long, but it was interesting learning experience. It just wasn't. I had been with ATB in a strategy role, and actually what I did there was would coach branch managers on how to coach their employees, and sales management and things like that. But I missed leadership, and so ended up at TELUS because I missed that leadership. And well, telecom wasn't for me. I have actually made some great connections. I still, one of my managers out of Red Deer, I had all of the 403 area code with the exception of Calgary, and one of my managers in Red Deer and I, every time there's a new Marvel movie drop, him and I, it's a tradition. Right. So except for we just went back to our first one post COVID. We're both pretty excited we can do that again. So made some good connections there and learned some things. Yeah. It just wasn't telecom. Just wasn't. I wasn't getting excited to go to work.
Right. And I can see now then too, like being with the United Way, this may be one of the longer terms because just as you're explaining this, there's so many different facets to oversee, and it's almost like there's a constant group of people coming through and coming up that here's some more people. Yeah. Like, is this a job? Do you see that may be that job that it never gets to the point where they don't need you?
It might be. I've got some really strong folks. I'm always a big believer in succession planning. So I do have a few folks that I have that we're developing so that if Brett gets hit by a bus tomorrow, although I never walk anywhere, so the chances of that happening, if Brett accidentally puts his Jeep in reverse and stands behind it, that there's somebody there that can take over for me. I don't know. The funny thing with how I always find it is it'll just be one day. It's like, you know what? There's nothing exciting left to do. Right. And so I'll start looking. And
it sounds like it's going to be a while before that happens, or
very likely.
But then maybe here's the challenge too, that it's just based on it. It always seems you end up with guiding, with leadership. Do you just break out and do your own subcontracting for companies and going in as a liaison, or?
That's something my wife and Emily and I have talked about, because Emily has a very specific set of skills around privacy and information management. She just wrapped up her last course for her master's in information management. Right. And it's kind of it's a fresh field. There's not a lot of folks out there. And so we could probably do a lot of that. We actually just incorporated in case we decide to do a few side projects or things like that. Okay. I don't know if we will, but we it's like, well, you know what, if we got a company in place, let's see. And we could absolutely do that. I'm loving what I'm doing right now, and it's last year was a challenge because what we do really in person thing, like we go to workplaces and we talk about the work we do, and then I go visit the agencies that we fund and talk about how we can work better together, and then all of a sudden you're not allowed to do any of those things,
right? And
so we had to really quickly shift to how do we take something that's a very in-person thing and still get the same engagement virtually using Zoom, or how do we tell the stories of the lives that have been changed with Zoom, right? And so we launched a podcast.
There you go.
We did some video sessions. We were doing anything we could to get the attention. A lot of Zoom meetings. We have some very clever corporate partners that support us that came up with their own ideas, and we were able to do that. So now it's how far back to what we used to do we go? Right. And how much of what we gained and learned through COVID do we keep? And we'll probably keep some and probably go back to some of the old ways. Like we completely shifted digital. We got off premises for our server. We went completely cloud-based, and that allowed us to, we moved during the pandemic. We went to a place half as big, saves us $40,000 a year. Right. And allows us to work. We can work from wherever. Yeah. Right. So
I always wondered how that would affect, because not just with a not-for-profit, but big companies now, that the ability for a lot of people to work from home with computers and various types of work. So I'm not surprised at all that's the direction that you guys went. More cost effective and
well, and the team loves it, and there's a lot of people that say people are less productive work from home, and I think each individual is different in how their abilities to work from home. For my team, we were way more productive working from home. Right. I don't expect free overtime. I don't ask it of my team, but we also all want to do well, and so they would work. There's times where I'd have to we don't use a tracking software, but we use Teams, and for those who are familiar with Microsoft Teams, you can see if they're there, the green, yellow, red. And I'd be working till 7 at night because we were really busy through COVID. Right. And seeing that one of my team was there, and I'd have to be like, get off, log off, right? And they it was easy for them to just put their head down. So for us, we're more productive. They like working from home. It's nice. And now that the restrictions are removed, if necessary, we can all get together. There's enough space to do it. If we need to hold meetings and play in person or whatever, but it's a huge cost savings for us and a happier team.
Awesome. I'm always enlightened when we catch up. Not always, not only the reminiscing, some of the shenanigans.
Sure.
We only scratched the surface of some of the crap we used to get into for sure, but we've got a whole evening planned. We're gonna get through this. Happy birthday again! Thanks so much for being a good sport about this and doing it off the cuff. This is my good friend, longtime friend, best friend. He was in my best man at my wedding, Brett Speight. He was the better man.
I remember almost fainting in that church. It was so hot there.
It was a good time. Brett Speight, someone completely interesting. Now, one last question, and this is something we just started doing here. You're someone completely interesting, but who would you recommend for this podcast? I'm not saying we'd end up getting them, but who would you say would be?
After our earlier bit, I gotta say Darren Watson.
Darren Watson.
It's gotta be Darren Watson.
Well, he's got no choice because we're all good friends, so we're going to be asking him down the road for sure. I think I already did, and he says, yeah, once time allots for us to get together, we will definitely have him. Thanks so much, Brett Speight. If you're enjoying the show, please give us a like, share, and subscribe on your favorite podcast provider. You can find us by searching Poolin Radio or Now for Someone Completely Interesting. Please excuse the dog in the back. Thanks so much, Brett.
Thanks.